A power line runs right over an Amish farm, close enough to touch from the roof, and nobody underneath has ever plugged a single thing into it. Look at this kid. Straw hat, jaw dropped, staring at the wire like it fell from another planet. He could reach up and touch it. He won't. You're holding a phone that can summon a helicopter. 30 miles from that kid, a bishop sits at a table lit by one oil lamp, deciding whether a gas refrigerator counts as electricity. That's Eli's world. Eli is a plainly dressed Amish man who notices how loud our lives are and answers with plain common sense. Here's the strange part. The line between yes and no wasn't drawn by the technology. It was drawn by a church vote, in a real year, in a real county. Two worlds side by side, because of a meeting. So why did the Amish freeze their relationship with electricity at one exact moment? And what does that choice protect? Answer this, and you'll never look at a light switch the same way again. Or a community. You probably think the Amish thing is just a quirky custom. No cars, no zippers, a horse where a Honda should be. A charming stubbornness, frozen in time. But that misses what's actually happening. The custom isn't a quirk. It's a rule, and a rule needs someone to enforce it. Here's the sharper truth. Every Amish no is a decision the whole community made together, on purpose, out loud. Not a random hang-up. A vote, basically, about whether a thing pulls people apart or holds them close. And this way of thinking has a father and a birthday. Back in 1693, a Swiss elder named Jacob Ammon broke away from the Mennonites over how strictly you should shun a member who strayed. He wanted the line drawn hard. The people who followed him became the Amish. He was arguing about people, not phones. But the logic he built, we decide together who stays in and what belongs, is the exact machinery that later judged the car, the wire, and the light switch. The split happened in Alsace, France, over 3 centuries ago, so when a buggy clops down a road while a pickup roars past 3 feet away, you're not watching one group forget the modern world. You're watching one group that voted on it. The truck driver never held a meeting about whether his engine helps his marriage. The buggy did. That's the difference, and it's a little embarrassing for the truck. Think about that gap for a second. Most of us adopt a gadget because it exists and it's Tuesday. The Amish ask a question first, and the question is always about the group, never about the gadget, which raises the obvious problem. If it's a community rule, who exactly writes the rules? And how does a whole church agree on where the line falls between a telephone in the house and a telephone in a shed at the end of the driveway? Because that specific line is real, and it starts in chapter 2. You picture a rule book, a thick binder somewhere, laminated, alphabetized. There isn't one. That's the first thing to get straight. Most people assume the Amish way of life is one big frozen custom, handed down whole and never questioned. It looks that way from a passing car. But a custom is just a thing people happen to do. A rule is a thing a community decides together and agrees to keep. Chapter 2 is about that difference. The rules live in something called the Ordnung, and here's the part that trips everyone up. It's mostly unwritten. Each church district agrees on its own version, out loud, by consensus, usually twice a year. So the line between a phone in the kitchen and a phone in a shed isn't handed down from headquarters. Your neighbors voted on it. And this is where you have to slow down. You expected a central authority telling everyone what to do. The truth runs the other way entirely. The individual answers to the small local church, and the small local church answers to almost nobody. Read that back slowly. The most tightly ordered people you can name have no headquarters at all. That structure is old, and you can point to where it took root. The first large Amish settlements in North America went up in Pennsylvania's Lancaster County beginning around 1737, before the American Revolution, and that county still holds the largest Old Order Amish population today. Nearly 300 years, same heartland. So when a district debates a shed telephone, it's leaning on a habit of local self-rule older than the country around it. You see it on the road. A buggy rolls through Lancaster at 8 miles an hour, while pickup trucks and delivery vans scream past on both sides. The buggy isn't confused. It already had the meeting. And in the corner of the frame, a small elder studies a telephone pole, squints for a long, patient moment, and writes one word in his notebook: no, which leaves the harder question. If every district votes for itself, why do their answers keep landing in roughly the same place? And what happens to the family that votes differently, which is Chapter 3? So isn't the no electricity thing just a quaint old habit? Not quite. You probably picture a custom passed down like a family recipe, unquestioned. The sharper truth is that Chapter 3 works as a community rule, not a random quirk. Nobody woke up hating light bulbs. The bishops made a decision, and the timing tells you everything. Here's the part people miss. Before the Rural Electrification Act of 1936, about 90% of U.S. farms had no electricity at all, so the Amish weren't rejecting something everyone else had. They were watching the wires arrive. When rural electrification spread fast after 1936, that was the exact window when old order Amish bishops sat down, debated grid power for homes, and said no on purpose. A vote. And their reasoning wasn't about the electricity itself. It was about what the wire connects you to. A line running from your kitchen to a distant company ties your household to the outside world, to schedules and salesmen, and a life that never slows down. So the rule protects the community from the wire's second gift: dependence. That's the mechanism. The switch is really a leash, and they refuse to hold the other end. Picture a buggy clopping down a two-lane road while a semi blows past at 70, radio blaring. The buggy does not flinch. The driver isn't fighting the truck, he simply declined to become it. That's Chapter 3 in one frame. A whole world choosing its own speed. And in the corner, our elder studies a humming refrigerator, squints for a long, patient moment, and writes one word in his notebook: no. But a rule this tidy raises a suspicious question. If the reasoning is really about dependence, why do the Amish plug into some things and not others? Running gas-powered milk coolers while banning the wire that would do the same job easier. That's not stubbornness. It's a line drawn with startling precision. The next puzzle is where exactly they drew it, and why a diesel engine passes the test when a power line fails it, which is Chapter 4. So you'd think turning down electricity is just an old Amish quirk. But that's not the strange part. The myth says the Amish reject technology because they're stuck in the past. That's not quite it. The sharper truth is that this is a community rule, not a random preference, a rule with a name. Chapter 4 is that rule working exactly as designed. Here's the mechanism. Old order Amish bishops ruled against connecting to the public electrical grid, and they wrote that decision down in the Ordnung, the community rules of each district. That happened in the 1920s and 1930s when power lines were spreading across Pennsylvania farmland. The rules vary by district, but they share one core idea. The grid ties your home to the outside world. And staying separate from that world is the whole point. So the ban isn't about hating machines. It's about a wire physically linking your kitchen to everyone else's decisions. A diesel engine in your barn belongs to you. A power line running to your house belongs to a company 40 miles away. One keeps you separate. The other plugs you in. Watch how this looks on a Tuesday. A buggy rolls down a two-lane road at 8 miles an hour, unbothered, while cars stack up behind it honking. The horse does not check its notifications. The family inside is not late for anything because they never agreed to be. Somewhere in the corner, the little hand-drawn elder studies a telephone pole with a slow, patient squint. He opens his notebook. He writes one word. That's the elegance of it. The Ordnung isn't a list of gadgets to fear. It's a line about ownership and connection. Anything that keeps the home its own island passes. Anything that plugs it into the larger machine gets that quiet, careful no. Which raises the real question. If a diesel generator is fine and a battery is fine, then what happens when technology gets small enough to slip through the rules entirely? The phone in a shed, the panel on a roof, and that gray zone is where we go next, in Chapter 5. The community rule. That's Chapter 5. You probably think the Amish just picked some quaint list of forbidden things, like a club with a strict dress code. Buggies, yes, cars, no, and everyone shrugs and moves on. But the rule isn't about the object at all. It's about what the object does to the people around it. Every phone, every generator, every zipper gets weighed against one question. Will this pull us closer or push us apart? Sociologist Donald Craybill of Elizabethtown College spent years documenting exactly this. He found that Amish technology decisions run on a concept called Gelassenheit, yielding to the community. A device gets accepted or rejected based on whether it strengthens or weakens the ties between neighbors. So the tractor isn't banned for being loud. It's banned because a man who owns one stops needing his brother's help at harvest. The tool works fine. The problem is what it quietly does to everyone standing near it. Think about that. A car doesn't just move you faster. It lets you drive 40 miles for church, then 80, then never come back. So the community keeps the buggy, which caps how far you can wander from the people who'd bury you. It's less a rule about horses than a rule about distance, which is why a buggy can roll calmly down a Pennsylvania road while a line of cars idles behind it. Engines whining, drivers checking their phones. The buggy isn't losing that race. It was never in it. It's just carrying a family who will all still be here on Tuesday. And the little elder in the corner keeps squinting. A neighbor's new refrigerator hums into view, and he studies it for a long, patient moment. Notebook out. No, not because cold food offends him, because a shared ice house gave 4 families a reason to see each other every week, and a fridge gives them none. So the rule is really a machine for keeping people tangled together. But a rule needs someone to write it down, argue it, enforce it, which means somebody has to decide. Who actually holds that pencil? And how do they choose? Is Chapter 6. You picture an Amish farmer flat refusing electricity, right? You imagine him squinting at a light switch like it insulted him. That's the myth. The Amish hate electricity, full stop. Some quaint fear of the modern buzz. But the real rule is sharper and stranger than that. The ban isn't on electricity, it's on the grid. They draw a line at connection, not at power itself. Amish communities permit diesel generators and pneumatic power systems precisely because those things stay off the public grid. So a barn can hum with air-driven tools all day. What it will not do is share a wire with the outside world. The wire is the leash. Plug into the grid and you plug into everyone's schedule, everyone's habits, everyone's late-night refrigerator light. That's the thread they refuse to pull because one wire drags in 1,000 others. It's a community rule with a reason, not a random quirk. Think about it this way. A buggy clops down the shoulder while a Tesla whines past doing 70. The buggy isn't losing a race. It never entered one. So the generator's fine, but the extension cord to town is the devil. Got it? Sort of. And right on cue, the little hand-drawn elder appears in the corner, studying the diesel generator with a long, patient squint. He tilts his head, then he opens his notebook, licks the pencil, and writes a single careful word. No. If a generator gets a maybe and the grid gets a firm no, somebody had to sit in a room and decide exactly where that line falls. The tool isn't the point, the decision is. So, who draws the line? And why does one district allow air-powered milk pumps while the district 4 miles over says absolutely not? Same religion, same buggies, wildly different rules, which tells you these calls happen locally, one congregation at a time, roughly every couple of years when something new shows up at the door. And what shows up next, and who gets the final say on it, is Chapter 7. So who actually gets the final say? You'd assume it's one bishop pointing a finger and saying no forever. That's the myth, that the rule is just some old man's mood. And honestly, watch the elder in the corner, squinting at a refrigerator, scribbling no, and you'd believe it. But the real mechanism is sharper than a grumpy patriarch. Each church district writes its own ordnung, an unwritten agreement everyone renews together. So the rule is a shared promise, not a whim. The question isn't, does this gadget work? It's, does this gadget pull us apart? A telephone in the house means anyone can call you at dinner, which is basically hell with a dial tone. A phone shack at the end of the lane means you walk out to answer it, apparently on purpose. Same technology, completely different pull on the family. So the ban isn't about the wire, it's about the leash. And here's the part that trips people up. You'd expect a community that refuses smartphones to be quietly shrinking, a museum exhibit slowly emptying out. Dead wrong. The old order Amish across the United States and Canada numbered roughly 390,000 in 2023, more than doubling since 1990, which makes them one of the fastest-growing religious groups on the continent. Not despite the tech rules, but arguably because of them. Big families stay, and most of the kids stay too, which is more than you can say for most group chats. Picture it on any county road in Lancaster. A buggy clops along at 8 miles an hour while a line of cars stacks up behind it, engines revving, someone leaning on a horn. The buggy does not speed up. The buggy has never once sped up. That calm little box on wheels is outbreeding half the drivers honking at it, which is a sentence I did not expect to defend with a census. So the rules hold the community together, and the community keeps growing, and the elder in the corner keeps filling his notebook with the word no. But growth brings pressure, and pressure brings the one question every district eventually faces at the door. What happens when the new thing isn't a phone or a car, but the power itself, which is Chapter 8? So you'd think the electricity rule is one flat law, handed down and obeyed. That's the tidy version, and it's wrong. People picture a single Amish rulebook where somebody underlined "no electricity" in heavy pencil, and everyone salutes it forever. But that's not the strange part. The sharper truth is that the ban isn't one rule at all. It's a community agreement argued out face to face in a room full of neighbors who all know each other's barns. That agreement has a name, the Ordnung. And here's the part that breaks people's brains. Donald Craybill spent his career studying this, and his 2001 book, Amish Society, written with Mark Olshan, lays out the machinery plainly. Each district runs under one bishop, and each district holds roughly 20 to 40 families. Every one of those districts negotiates its own Ordnung, separately, on its own timeline. So there is no single Amish electricity rule anywhere. There are hundreds. Which means one district might allow batteries for a milk cooler, while the district 3 miles down the road quietly says, no. Same bonnets, same buggies, different power. It's less a religion than the world's most patient homeowners association, except the meetings actually decide something. Eli, when he first heard this, just stared at the map and said, so it's federalism with horses. Which, annoyingly, is close. Picture that box on wheels again, the buggy clopping along the shoulder while a pickup blasts past honking. The driver assumes he's watching a museum piece frozen in one rule. He isn't. He's passing a moving negotiation, one that's been quietly redrawn dozens of times in dozens of districts, each vote counted around a kitchen table. And this is where the little elder in the corner earns his keep. All video he's squinted at the telephone pole, the refrigerator, the smartphone, writing the same single word, no. His notebook is nearly full now, but the districts keep meeting and the pressure keeps building. And some new thing keeps knocking at the door that the old no doesn't quite cover. So what finally makes a district say yes? And why does the same technology get blessed in one valley and banned in the next? So picture that power line again, running over the Ohio farm, close enough to touch from the roof. The family underneath has still never plugged in. But now you know that isn't fear of the wire. It's a choice to stay untethered from strangers, to keep the cord between neighbors instead of grids. That's what the whole thing protects. Not the past, but the power to decide together what comes through your door. And you, holding your phone that can summon a helicopter. Did anyone ever ask you? The line got drawn for you, quietly, by companies and habits, and the sheer speed of yes. So here's the thing that farm leaves hanging over your own roof. What would you refuse if refusing were still on the table?